Hey guys, welcome back. In the last lecture, we used active model serializers to customize the API response to send the custom data or custom key value pair to the React frontend when we try to consume API endpoint from the React application. Okay, now in this lecture, we will learn that how we can create child components in the React and how we can shorten the responsibility of parent components. Okay, so child component is also a component. Okay, and you can consider it like that. Let's say you have a template, okay, in the Rails, let's say view file .html.trb, and then you are rendering the uh, partial within your view file. Okay, for example, let me show you in the Rails. That go to the Rails part. Okay, and in the Rails part you can open the views section of the employees table. Okay, and open the new .html.trb. Okay, so here you can see that we are rendering the form here. Okay, I mean the form partial, and this is the form partial. Okay, so if we wish, without creating this partial, we can we can create the entire form within the new.html.erb, and that will work the same way like it is working right now to show the form for creating a new employee. Okay, but we created a partial here because that partial is required at multiple places, like for the let's say new employee or for editing the employee. Okay, and in the same way we need to use the React components as a partial, you can say. Okay, so when we reuse a component within multiple components, then we can say that it is a child component, and in other way we can use them in the parent component to refactor the view chunks of that we want to display on the browser. Okay, so now let's go to the React part. So here you can see that in this employee list component, what we are doing, that we are iterating this table row to display the list of employees. Okay, so we can create a new child component, like let's say employee row. Okay, and then we can or let's say employee component or employee detail component. Okay, and then we can iterate that component within the T body. Okay, to display the employee rows into the data. Okay, so what we can do, that first we will ask chat gpt that this is my component and I want to refactor this in a way that this employee detail should be rendered by some child component. Okay, so how we can do that? So let's copy the entire component. Okay, and then we can go to the chat gpt, and here let's say in the chat gpt that you can ask that look at the following component, paste your component here, and then I want to separate the tr which is in the map function to display the table row in a child component. How can I do that? Okay, so when you ask this thing to ChatGPT, then ChatGPT will start generating response for you. So here you can see that ChatGPT will create a new component named as employee row. Okay, and then it will accept the argument or property which is the name as employee. Okay, and then uh, it will create or it will return a table row. Okay, and in the employee list component you can see that this is how we can call this child component. Okay, just like we render the partial in the Rails views. Okay, so first let's create a new component which is the employee row. Okay, so go to the project directory where the React app is running and create a new component within the src components employees. Okay, and here create a new file and name it as employee row dot jsx. Okay, and here what you need to do, just copy the code and paste it here. Okay, and One more thing I want to clear, that why I'm creating these components through the chat GPT, just to show you that how we can create the functional components, and how we can use chat GPT to create is create it in a faster way. Okay, if you want to create a functional component from scratch, you can follow my another playlist, and I will share the link of that playlist into the description, where I showed that how we can create functional component from the scratch. Okay, so just to save the time, I am creating this from chat GPT. Okay, so save this file now, and now what we need to do, that we need to import this employee row component within the employee list.jsx. Okay, so after the import exos, what we can do, import, sorry, import employee row from, and then since this is in the same directory, so we can provide, let's say, employee row. Okay, and semicolon here. Now we need to remove this. Okay, just remove it. Instead of it, what we need to do, that we need to call this component. Okay, and how we can call this component, so you can see app.js here, we are rendering the employee list component, so we can just copy this format here, and here what we can do, employee list, remove the list by row. Okay, and then in, like, we are passing the key property to the tr, we need to pass the key property here as well, let's say key, and then key should be employee dot id. Okay, so we can use it like this, key must be employee dot id. Okay, and then we need to pass the property, okay, which is as employee, and then here you need to pass employee, and save it now. So if you save it and go to the browser where your React app is running, you will see that we are still getting the same data, or we are still getting the all the employees list on the browser. Okay, so this is how you can create a child component to refactor your parent components. Okay, so here you need to notice few things, like what we did here, that first, just like in the rails you render the partial, you need to mention the component name here that you want to render within another component. So we passed employee row, and then key. And why we use key here, they like we are using key to uniquely identify this component in the dom. Okay, and we will understand about the keys in the next lecture, and we will again ask ChatGPT to explain this key. Okay, but for now, like employee row and then key, because we are iterating this component within the loop, okay, or within the map function. And then you need to pass the employee object to the to the child component. Okay, and this is the child component which is expecting this employee property. Okay, now let's say, for example, if you save this user, okay, and you are passing user to employee. Okay, then you need to make sure that this employee name must be user. For example, let's make all this thing user. Okay, so if you save this now and you go to the browser and refresh the page, you will see the same data, because you passed the same property name, which is the user.id, user.full name, and so on. Okay, and here you can see that you are passing this property from here. Okay, so it is now reflecting the correct data. But what you will do, that if you pass user from here and you are expecting employee at here, then this will not work and you will get error. And you can see something like it is calling a function. For example, let's say it's a ruby file. For example, let me show you in some new file, change the plain text to ruby. Okay, for example, you are expecting def some method. Okay, and here arg1 2. Okay, now if whatever you are passing to argument 1 and argument 2, you need to use arg1 and arg2 within this method. If you use, let's say, arg11 plus arg22, then you will get error. Why? Because in this method you did not define, or you are not expecting argument 1 1 or argument 2 2. You are just expecting argument 1 and argument 2. So you need to use it like this. Okay, so this is the same way it is working for React as well. So whenever you pass a property, now let's undo this. So whenever you pass a property, your property name must match to the between the parent and child component. Okay, so whatever you are passing from your parent component, okay, let's say here it is employee, so it should be expected as the employee here. Okay, so whatever the argument you are passing, it name must be unique, it must be same in the both the calling component and the called component. Okay, I mean the component which is calling the child component and the child component which is being called. Okay, so this is how you can use child component within the React. Now in the next lecture we will learn that what is key attribute in the React and why it is being used and why it is important to use the key. Okay, so that's all for this lecture. Try to create this child component at your end, and we will meet into the next lecture. Till then, tata, goodbye, take care, and stay safe.